How much do you spend a month on your cell phone plan? Don't tell me, I don't want to hear. This is an emergency situation. Normally cell phones are great, but if you have a landline, in other words, a hardwired phone and a cell phone, get rid of one of them, probably the landline. And if you have more than 2 cell phones in your house, get rid of them. And whatever plan you have, seek to reduce the plan. Now you're saying to me, but how will we survive? How will we communicate? Well, we used to do that not that many years ago without them. But that's why you need to have, if you're in a family, you need to have at least 2. Not for school, kids aren't supposed to use them in school. Not at work, there are other phones you can use at work. But let's say it's a Friday or Saturday night and a teenage son or daughter wants to go out, they get 1 cell phone and you get 1 cell phone. So you can communicate. But in emergencies, in this kind of financial situation, it's got to be cut. Let's keep going because I know you're just thrilled with what I'm saying. How about this one, just for a stunner? Ron Blue said that he had read that those who do not use their credit cards at all will save 34% of their discretionary spending. He didn't believe it, and he's an expert. So for a year, he literally got rid of every credit card for every store, every financial institution, and he only paid cash. And he said it was interesting. When I would go in to buy clothes in a clothing store, and he was not spending extravagantly at all because, you know, money was important and the use of it was important. He would look at clothes, and then when he thought about, I'll buy it, then he thought about the cash that he did have in his pocket and thought, do I really want to pay cash for that? And he decided it was okay. He didn't need to buy it. He'd go into Macy's, or he'd go into a pharmacy store for whatever reason. And it said it caused him to think and to pause, and to, more often than not, simply not to buy. At the end of the year, he found he did not save 34%. He saved 33% of his discretionary lifestyle expenditures. So I figure that that would save another couple of thousand anyway, given a $50,000 or $40,000 now income. Let's go on to another couple of things. Move to a smaller apartment or house. I hate to say it, but if you could spend $200 less only a month, that would be $2,500 that you would be saving over 1 year's time period alone. I know that is difficult. Moving, trust me, I understand moving, and it's not fun. And you may love where you are, but we're in an emergency situation. There's $2,500 more. Here's another situation, entertainment, what I call entertainment, what you do just to have fun. Reduce it down to bare minimum. Have fun at home. Watch TV. Oh, and by the way, reduce your cable contract so you're getting just basic cable. Use your TV to watch movies with Redbox. It's only $1. Lucy and I felt, in terms of entertainment, when we were in the growing up years with our children, that we felt it very important to go out for lunch after every Sunday. Important for us to recollect after worship in Sunday school. It took us different places. Felt it was important to talk about what we learned and what we heard, what we experienced in Sunday. And we also thought it was a little incentive for our children, to come to church with us. We went out to lunch every week, and we found the cheapest place that we could find to go for lunch, which for us was Taco Bell. Now, I know that's your favorite restaurant, but we went every week to Taco Bell, and we had a great time. Didn't make any difference. It was cheap food. We went every week, and in fact, it got to the point that we went every week, and we weren't going to spend more, that the people behind the counter, I remember one week, we all went up to the counter, and one of my daughters began to order, as she always did, and the person behind the counter said, right, before she did, right, you want the chicken taco salad, hold the cheese, and sour cream on the side. She kind of went, yeah. That is what I want, because we'd done it so much, they knew what we wanted. So reduce entertainment. Don't have to spend a lot of money for entertainment. We can entertain ourselves really without a whole lot of difficulty or expense. Ron Blue says that he's asked what are the most common mistakes he hears across America when it comes to finances. And he says, the most common mistake I hear is that people spend too much when it comes to lifestyle spending. They're spending more out than they are bringing in. So those are some specific ways in which we can reduce our spending. These and other ways, I figure, get us to, as I said in the first service, to either $9,000 or $9,500. Not quite to $10,000, but we're almost there. Then one of the elders came up to me and got me in the hall between services and said, "You forgot something about taxes." I said, "Oh?" And the elder said, "Yes, you know, if your income is not $50,000, but now it's $40,000, you're paying less in taxes." I said, "You're right. There's another $500 or however much that is, maybe up to $1,000. So we've hit our $10,000. Congratulations." Do you know what that would do to you in terms of your anxiety if you could find $10,000? And we just found it. Now, let me just talk one more about control the flow. We've talked about reducing spending, now about controlling the flow. It's the cookie jar or the flour jar approach that your great-great-grandparents or your great-great-great-grandparents used back in the old days. Any extra they had, which was very minimal, they would place into a cookie jar in the shelf in their kitchen, and as it slowly accumulated, they would watch it, let it accumulate until it reached the amount they needed to go buy that special purchase, special dress, special plow, I don't know, whatever they had. And that was the cookie jar approach or the flour jar approach. Today we call it the envelope system. The way it works is when you get a check, when you get income, you deposit that in the bank and you use that money to pay your big expenses month after month after month, whatever those expenses are. In addition, you draw out of there a predetermined amount that you've already figured out and you divide it into different envelopes. Each envelope has a label: entertainment, food, fuel, pocket change. Just as you're going around, you need to have a little money in your pocket for whatever reason, and there could be other categories as well. Then when it comes time, for instance, to pay for gasoline, you've got the envelope right there in the car, and you use that to pay for your gasoline. When the envelope is done and there is no more money in the envelope, you're done paying for gasoline for that 2-week period. You're done. So that means no trip to Lancaster. That means no trip perhaps into Philadelphia. Take the train instead. You're just done. And then the next 2-week period or month period, you'll budget a little more wisely. You use the money for food. When you're out of money for food, you're out of money. So that means we're not going to be able to pay for soda or chips or all the other stuff that you'd like to have. It's just the essentials. It may also mean that you go ahead and apply for food stamps or governmental supplemental income like WIC. It just may have to happen. When it comes time for entertainment and you're done with that envelope for entertainment, then you're done paying for entertainment. It's time to do something for free now. It's time to figure out something creatively to do instead. So we control the flow by the envelope system, and that keeps us accountable for what we are spending. So, where are we? We have, in an emergency situation, decided that we've got to reduce the one category that we can manage, and we've reduced it considerably. We're not going to be there for a long period of time, because that would be very hard, but for the rest of this year, or for the year after as well, we can probably do that short term. But now we need to consider the words of Jesus. And let's not use the slides, Kevin. We'll just I'll confuse everybody. Here's my translation of Matthew 6, verses 31 through 34. Therefore, or so I tell you, don't be anxious, don't panic about putting food on the table or shelter over your head. After all, everyone else seeks such things and asks those kinds of questions. Where will I get the money to buy food, clothing, shelter? Your Heavenly Father knows that you need all these things. But seek first His kingdom and His right ways of thinking and acting, and all these other things shall be yours as well. Therefore, don't be anxious, don't panic. Let tomorrow take care of its own worry. When we're in a situation where money is really tight and we hear those words of Jesus, our first reaction is to say, that's fine for you to say it, Jesus, but boy, that doesn't touch me where I am. I mean, that's great if you have enough money. Those are nice, soothing sounding words, but not for me right now. But will you just wait a minute before you carry through on that? Because Jesus' words are logical. I've discovered that just very recently in looking at this passage. They are so logical. He begins with a logical word, therefore, literally, or so. That's a logical word. And now he tells us one piece of the logic. The first piece of the logic is verse 32. The Heavenly Father knows everyone else seeks these things. He knows that everyone seeks these things. He knows what you need. So the first bit of logic, the statement is that God knows. Would you agree that that's a truth just in your life, that you agree with that truth, that God knows your situation, God is not surprised by what you're facing? Is that a truth you would agree with? I mean, it would seem to me that that's a pretty self-evident truth. The next piece, not only is that God knows, but God cares. Just a few verses up, it's either verse 28 or 25, Jesus says this, "Consider the birds of the air. They don't reap like a farmer. They don't plant or sow like a farmer. They don't store their harvest in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them." And then Jesus says, "Of how much more value are you?" So that's a second truth statement. Not only does Jesus know what we're facing, but Jesus cares about us. God has created everything in the universe. He cares about it all. But when it comes down to priorities to God, to the one thing that He cares far more about than anything else, do you know that's you? And the way we know it is because Jesus sent His Son and watched Him die on the cross. Can you imagine what that's like? God could easily have rescued Jesus from the cross. He sat back and He watched His only Son die for you. See, God doesn't just care about you. God really cares. So the logic so far is God knows about you. The next step is God cares about you. And I know sometimes when things are hard, I just know that it can be hard to allow that truth to sink into us. So all we have to do is look at the cross whenever we doubt. The next step is implied because God is speaking, and it's this, that God is powerful and is bringing His will about in our lives. God is powerful and is bringing about His will in our lives. And once again, I understand this is not an easy truth to grasp and to agree with when we're in those emergency, panicky situations. Here is where trust is needed. I have to trust, I choose to trust that Jesus Christ wants more for me and it will bring about His will. Whether I can see it or not, I trust that. So if we take all those three logical statements, God knows, God